Thank you, Travis. Much appreciated. And my name is Paul Worth, and I run a company called Traction Minded. And what Traction Minded is all about is helping organizations, businesses really achieve their goals and aspirations through a program called EOS, which is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And today's discussion will be based on the 6 key components of EOS and how, if you were to adopt these 6 key components in your business, you would have a much more successful business. And so this is great for people that are looking to start companies. This is great for people that are already involved in an organization where, you know, they are hitting the ground running already, and as well as organizations that have thousands of employees. So these tools are adaptable to any business environment. Before we get started, what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring your attention to the chat section over there, because there's a document that's uploaded that if you could perhaps print out while we're talking, and if not, maybe just have opened up if you have a second screen to look at, and if not, I'm going to walk you through what's on that document. And so let me go ahead and do just that. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you what that document looks like. Can people see that document up on their screen? Wonderful. So this document is called the Vision Traction Organizer, or VTO for short. And what it is it's an entrepreneurial version of a strategic plan. And so what we help our clients do is we help them create a 2-page strategic document as opposed to a 50-page document that most organizations would probably rarely, if ever, use. And so through our workshop this afternoon, I'm going to bring you through certain sections within that document, and I do highly encourage all of you to print that document out, have it available for you after this call so that you could go ahead and maybe complete that document. We won't have time, obviously, to complete it together, but you'll be able to get through quite a bit of it and just understand what it is that, you know, I'm trying to help you accomplish over here. And I do encourage you to ask questions along the way, so that if you have questions, you know, just shoot them out. It's a small enough group where we can get through all of the questions, I'm sure, quite easily. And I'm just going to change my screen here, and I'm hoping that you could see a screen that says the 6 key components every entrepreneurial organization needs. Are you able to see that? Hal, you're the only face I see at the moment because my screen is minimized. Are you able to see that document?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And, you know, I have 2 goals for you today. The first goal is to get you to look at your business in a different way, get you to see it through different lenses, and simplify the way you run your business. In essence, gain more control and run a better business. And my second goal is to give you some tools, real practical, simple tools to get more done, to gain more traction, and ultimately, again, to run a better business. And so what I want you to do is I want you to think about what you want from your business. And it has to be at least 5 years out. What is that number one thing you want out of your business? And so as you look at that document that I showed you a few moments ago, you'll see a section there called the 10-year target. And what I'd like you to do is that if you have that document printed, to go ahead and write it on there. And if not, to go ahead and just write that on a separate sheet of paper. And again, this is that big number one business goal for your organization. And I'll just take a moment to let you do that. And while you're doing that, if you could look at the screen, you'll see a water pipe over there that has a bunch of holes in it with some pegs, hopefully to try to keep the water from spouting out of that. And I put that up there because I believe that most business owners, most people starting a business, having an established business, kind of feel like that's their role in their business. It's just putting out holes wherever they can find the opportunity to do so. When we talk to business owners, we find that business owners have 5 major frustrations in their business. The first one is control, a feeling out of control, not getting what they want out of their business. Maybe that's you. Profit or lack thereof, or just not making enough. Many business owners are feeling the pressure with people, feeling that your employees, customers, vendors are wearing you down. Or maybe you hit the ceiling. Maybe you just set a goal that you just can't seem to reach it. Maybe you want to grow rapidly. Some of you may want to maximize profit. Some of you just want a profit, but you're hitting a ceiling somewhere in your business. And then the fifth frustration is nothing is working. You're trying all the new stuff, reading all the new books and asking the team to read a new book, but nothing seems to be sticking. And so what we're going to talk about here in terms of EOS is that, first of all, EOS has been around for over 20 years. It was created by a gentleman by the name of Gino Wickman, who wrote the book called Traction. And there are over 7,670 companies that are using EOS in their business with the help of an implementer such as myself. We've conducted over 54,000 full-day sessions with clients, and there are 350 of us in the US, Europe, Australia, and Asia. A little bit about myself. So I started the journey in business as most everybody out of college, got a degree in finance, and worked my way through corporate America up to executive level and national positions with Fortune 500 subsidiaries and things of that nature. Started my own entrepreneurial journey in 2008 as a facilitator of CEO mastermind groups, and as well as executive coaching and working with business owners, helping them implement EOS in their business. I also had two businesses myself. I had an infill home building business in Florida, and I had a mortgage company here in California. So I know it from both sides of the coin, from the corporate side as well as from the entrepreneurial side. And so what I want you to do is I want you to think of your business, and your business is at the center of a model that we've created for business owners. And that model is based on a belief that every business owner, every leader is typically wrestling with 136 issues simultaneously. And to the extent that you can, really figure out that everything really drops down to 6 key components of your business, those 136 issues tend to fall into place because they're really symptoms of one of these true root causes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a first pass around the model where I'll just briefly describe what each of these 6 key components are. And then I'll take a deeper pass sharing with you tools and disciplines that you can use in your business to help you grow a stronger business. So that first discipline, that first key component is something we call the vision component. And the vision component is just getting everybody 100% on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. And when we take a second pass around the model, what I'm going to do is introduce 2 tools or disciplines to you that'll help you strengthen the vision component, but we'll save that for the second pass. The second key component is the people component, and very simply, you cannot achieve great vision without great people. The truth is, every organization defines great people differently. And when we spend a little time on the tools and disciplines in a few minutes, we're going to cut through all of those wonderful terms out there, such as A players, superstars, top quartile, and really get to the heart of what makes for great people in your unique organization. The third key component is the data component. And this is running your business on facts and figures and objective information rather than, feelings, egos, and the subjective emotions that so often drive decision-making in an entrepreneurial organization. And what happens when you strengthen the vision, people, and data components in your organization is that everything becomes crystal clear. All the impurities, imperfections, problems, challenges just tend to jump right out at you. And that leads us to the fourth key component, and we call those issues. And strengthening the issues component is just getting really good at solving your problems as they arise. You cannot achieve success unless you're great at setting your problems up as they arise and then making them go away for the long-term greater good of the organization. The fifth key component is the process component, and strengthening the process component is just getting all of the most important stuff in your business done the best and right way every time. It'll create consistency and scalability in your business, and it'll make it easier and more profitable to manage. And then the final component is the traction component. And traction is about bringing your vision down to the ground and executing on that vision day in and day out. There's no coincidence that vision is at the top of the model and traction is at the bottom. If you can't bring your vision down to the ground and execute on it well, then vision without traction is hallucination. And so in a minute, we'll talk about 2 tools or disciplines we use to strengthen the traction component and help you get everything you want out of your business. Now, those are the 6 key components, and the 6 key components make up the EOS model. And EOS simply stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And what it is it's a program to help harmonize and orchestrate all the moving parts of your business to help you run a better business and live a better life. And so the journey that organizations take when they bring on EOS in their business is to help them strengthen those 6 key components in their business. Now, we make an assumption that you're in the right market and that you're selling the right product or services in your market. And if you're not, there isn't any system that's going to help you improve your business, okay? When we talk about strengthening these 6 key components, we typically measure success along the journey using a scientific but subjective scale of 0 to 100% strong, working to get your organization to 100% strong, but knowing full well that that's impossible, it's nirvana, it's never going to happen. And the real goal is to get you to 80% strong in your business. Truth be told, most organizations are operating somewhere around 20% strong and they're succeeding in spite of themselves. Again, your goal should be to get yourself to 80% strong in each of these 6 key components to help you run that better business. So that first tool or discipline is something we call the 8 questions. And those 8 questions are found in that document that we've attached here to this presentation called the Vision Traction Organizer. And what we want to do is we want you to answer 8 questions about your business. Now, we're not going to answer all of those 8 questions today, but we'll get through some of them. All right. And those 8 questions are: what are your core values? What is your core focus? Your 10-year target, your marketing strategy, your 3-year picture, 1-year plan, quarterly rocks, and what are your issues? What is your issues list? And so again, those 8 questions are found in that document. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring your attention to the question number 1, what are your core values? And so I'm sure many of you are familiar with the term core values. They are an essential set of guiding characteristics that define who you are at the core and what you want from your organization. And what we do is we help you understand how to use those core values to attract the right people in your organization and repel people who aren't a good fit in your organization. And what I'd like you to do right now is, whether you've printed that document or not, I'd like you to think of maybe the top 3 core values that you've either already established for your business or you may want to establish for your business. So just take a moment and write those core values down. And we're going to use those core values that you've put on that paper in a moment or two. So if you could just go ahead and take a moment to do that. Would somebody like to share what one of their core values is for their business?
I can do it.
Please.
So I don't know who has their video on or not, but my core values are right behind me. So I will happily share a couple. So as a digital marketing agency, our most important core value, because we're producing a lot of content for our clients, is surprise and delight our audience. That's a core value that we use and say every day. It's part of the onboarding of our new employees, and we ask ourselves that question every day and every week when we produce content for people. So surprise and delight our audience.
That is magnificent, Andrew, and thank you for sharing that. That is certainly a core value that people can rally around behind you in your organization and really bring that to life. So thank you. Anybody else want to share one of their core values? Enrico?
Candor is something that's important, not only to myself, but the organizations I'm running. I think we need to have some honest and open-ended communication. And sometimes we don't always agree, but we certainly need to put things on the table.
That is absolutely fantastic. And thank you for sharing that as well. So the second question on that VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, is what is your core focus? And your core focus is really just the sweet spot in your organization. And it's been called a million things in the history of business. A lot of people call it vision statement. Some people call it mission statement. Stephen Covey calls it voice. Jim Collins calls it the hedgehog concept. And I apologize for throwing another consulting term at you, but we call it core focus because it comes from your core. And once it's clearly defined and articulated, the trick is to stay laser focused within your core focus so that you're always operating in your sweet spot. The third question is, what is your 10-year target? And this is just a long-range, big goal for your business. The time frame is flexible, anywhere from 5 to 30 years out, and it is a clearly articulated, simple #1 business goal for your organization. And it gets you all on the same page with where you're going long-term. And you remember just a few minutes ago, I asked all of you to really spend a moment and think about what your #1 business goal is, maybe 5 years out. And here I'm looking for a volunteer as well, and I can ask for volunteers if somebody doesn't want to necessarily raise their hand right away, but I'd really be interested to hear a couple of your long-term goals, what they might be. Hal, do you want to share what maybe your long-term goal is for your organization?
Sure. As a matter of fact, we're in the process of refocusing this year, and it's to build a advisory and incubator group which yields $10 million in 5 to 7 years through equity participation as a result of successful exits.
That is fantastic. And what I like about that is that it's a SMART goal. You know, it's specific, it's measurable, it's timely, you know, and you have a number attached to it and a date attached to it. So I commend you. That is an outstanding goal. Kelly, not to put you on the phone over here. I know that, you know, you were thinking a little bit about a little food thing. Have you thought about a long-term goal for perhaps that opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping to like build it up more and maybe get into like Tasty or like BuzzFeed and try to get into like that kind of like, media kind of company just to see if like I can use my passion for that. So that's like, hopefully I'll get to be able to do that. But yeah, I just hope I can really keep building. I have like over 10 posts now, which is really good. So just creating better content. That's my thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. What I would encourage you to do is to kind of perhaps think about adjusting that a little bit. You know, where we heard from Hal and his long-term target had a specific measurable metric assigned to it and a date. And I think that that really is something that we should all consider when we're putting together our long-term goals, and make it big, hairy, audacious. You know, make it something that today you don't think you could achieve, but you know what, over time, you know, the bigger the goal, the more likely it is you're going to strive even harder to get there. So I really do appreciate, Kelly, you sharing that with us. Thank you very, very much for that. So question number 4 is your marketing strategy. And your marketing strategy is simply designed to get you all 100% on the same page with who you should talk to, who your demographic is. There are 4 parts to that marketing strategy. 1 is your target market, 3 uniques, proven process, and guarantee. And the target market is just getting you all within your organization to agree on the ideal prospect, the demographic, geographic, psychographic profile of the kind of people and companies you want to be laser focused on proactively selling and marketing to. And then once that's clear, the rest of the marketing strategy is simply the message to your ideal target. And so your 3 uniques are just 3 differentiating characteristics about your organization. 3 things about your organization that make you different and better than your competition, and it sets you apart from your competition. The guarantee is just a pledge or a promise that reduces the fear of adoption. It eliminates objections that you might face in the sales and marketing process. So as an example, you know, my pledge or promise to my clients is that at the end of a full day session, if they didn't get value from them, if I didn't deliver to them, don't pay me. It helps keep me on my toes and deliver what I promised to begin with. That has never happened, but that is a promise that I make. And so some organizations, about 50% of our clients will go ahead and have a strong guarantee, and the other 50% might have something a little bit less strong, but something where they can demonstrate to their clients that they do stand behind their product or their service. Now, those 4 components make up the marketing strategy. And once you're all 100% on the same page with your core values, your core focus, your 10-year target, and your marketing strategy, you know who you are at the core, what you love to do and are best at with your core focus, where you're going long term, and how you're going to get there with your marketing strategy. We then crystallize that vision for the organization, and we bring it down to the ground, and we start making it real with your 3-year picture. Now, your 3-year picture is not a detailed, 50-page strategic plan. All we're trying to do is just get every member of your team 100% on the same page with what the organization should look like, to help you crystallize it and visualize it so that everybody can see a clear picture in their mind's eyes. And if you can all see that same picture in your mind's eyes, the chances of you achieving it are that much stronger. And we start by quickly defining your profits, revenues, and measurables. And you'll see that on that Vision Traction Organizer. And what does the company need to achieve 3 years from now to lay the foundation for your 10-year target? And then you'll see a section there for bullet points. And what we want you to do there is we want you to write down 5 to 15 bullet points of what you envision the company looking like 3 years from now. How many employees do you want to have? How many locations do you want to have? Where do you want to have the locations? What products do you want to have available or services available to your clients? So the more clearly you can define what those goals are, and the more you can crystallize and visualize it, the more likely it is that people are going to rally behind it, because we want you to paint that picture for your staff and for yourself, frankly. We then look at the 1-year plan, question number 6, and you come to an agreement as an organization as to what your 1-year plan is. You'll notice we use the same predictions here: revenues, profits, and measurables. What are you going to achieve this year or next year to lay the foundation for achieving your vision? And then you work to agree on 3 to 7 priorities. We call them goals. And we focus on 3 to 7, not 23, because when everything is important, nothing is important. One of the phrases I use a lot with working with clients is less is more. And it's really important for me to pause over here for just a moment, because again, if you just have 20, 30 different initiatives that you want to accomplish in 1 year, if you're working with clients, there's no way for you to be able to get all of that done. And so it's really important that you really narrow it down to the most important things that you want to accomplish. Does anybody want to share what a 1-year goal would look like? Maybe, by December 31st, or maybe you've adjusted it for March 31st of next year?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Please.
So the main business goal that we have, top level, is to have 20 new clients this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're driven off of that number and the average revenue off of that number too. But that's certainly the goal that keeps the sales activities and all activities around our own marketing in place. So that's our main metric.
Love it. Love it. Thank you for sharing that, Andrew. Question number 7, quarterly rocks. Now we move to that next section on the VTO, and we call these rocks. And rocks are just 90-day priorities, getting us all 100% on the same page with what's most important over the next 90 days, kind of creating a 90-day world for the organization. And we start again by predicting revenues, profits, and measurables. Then we identify the 3 to 7 priorities for the company over the next 90 days, and ultimately 3 to 7 priorities for each of the people on your leadership team. It creates discipline, focus, and accountability so that you're always executing on your vision every 90 days. Question number 8, what are your issues? What is your issues list? And what we do is we recommend that you compile an issues list. I mentioned earlier that when your vision, people, and data components are strong, your organization is going to become transparent. You're going to have a lot of impurities, imperfections, needs, challenges, and obstacles. And so once you get those issues out of your head and onto a list, you've answered the 8th question, and we've answered all 8 questions. And so when you're done answering that question, you would have established for your organization what your strategic plan is. And if you do it with your leadership team, all of them will be on the same page with you as well. Now we go back to the model and we answer question number 2, which is shared by all. And what we mean there is that once you've established the vision for your organization by answering those 8 questions, it really is important for you to share your vision with everybody in your organization. And the best way to do that, frankly, is you have to tell them. You have to get them in a room, preferably every quarter, and share with them what your vision is for your organization. Get them all to see it, understand it, and want to be part of it. We move to the next question on your model over here, the people component. And here we have two different disciplines. The first is right people. And right people are just people that really share in the core values of your organization. And so the tool that we use to help you do that is something we call the People Analyzer. And so you remember a few minutes ago, I had asked you to write down maybe 3 of your core values for your organization. And what we do over here is we ask that you write them down at the top. So I'm going to share with you mine: humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what I say. And then from there, what you do is you write your people down on that first column, and you analyze your people to make certain that they do truly fit the core values of your organization. And we do this in a very simple process. We do this by either doing plus marks, minus marks, or plus hashtag minus. And so here is an example. Sally Jones, you know, more than 50% of the time, she exemplifies each of the core values that I've established for the organization. Now, John Smith, on the other hand, more than 50% of the time, he does not. Whereas George Wilson, 50-50. And what you have to do is you have to establish a bar for your organization. You have to determine what is the minimum that you would expect your people in terms of making certain that they live your core values. Now, it is impossible for everybody in the organization to live every one of your core values all of the time. And so what you have to do is you have to figure out what that bar is. If you have an odd number of core values, the recommendation is more of them should be pluses than plus minuses. So, and if you have even number of core values, you know, then it's either, you know, they have to have 2 pluses and 2 plus minuses, or 3 pluses and 1 plus minus. Question for you. Should an employee ever be rated? Should you have an employee as a right person who has a minus in one of your core values? Annie, what do you think?
Me?
Yes. Do you think if you have, and do you know, if you have employees in your organization, how would you feel if one of those employees less than 50% of the time really lived one of your core values for your organization? Would you think that they're a right person in your company?
If lived at them, no, absolutely not. I think more definitely need to be more than 50%.
I appreciate that answer, and that was the correct answer. So when you evaluate right people, you should never accept somebody in your organization who is a minus in any of your core values. Now, again, what you're doing is you are sharing with your people what your core values are, and you are asking them to really exemplify them in your business. But as you rate their performance and you see that they're not meeting them, that's where you have conversations with them to share with them what it is that they can do in order to achieve meeting your standards. Yes, Annie?
I do think that I think this might be that's my thought only. I think find people that had sometimes I worked with some startup before, and I think that the reason the staff fail too, that they just make a really difficult decision to let go of the people that they think were important, and they just drag them on because they think that they had the key account to the customers, and we just tolerate them so long that eventually the whole company fail. I work for a couple of startup and when I went in the Bay Area, and definitely not tolerate. They have to go. It's not totally anything less than 50%.
Annie, everybody else on this webinar will think that, I planted you in the audience because we share the same philosophy. And that is absolutely the case. So thank you for sharing that. Very, very insightful there. So that's right people. The second is right seats. And the way you determine right seats is through a basic organization chart that we actually call an accountability chart. And the premise here is that every organization has 3 major basic components. Every organization has a sales and marketing seat, an operations seat, and a finance seat. And sales and marketing, you all know what that is, you know, creating demand. It's working with Andrew to help create the demand for your product and then put that in to close sales. And operations, I don't know why I'm having feedback. Hopefully it won't last. An operations component where you build a product or deliver a service, and a finance component where you track the flow of money in and out of the organization and so forth. Every organization has another key function. We call that the integrator. And the integrator is just the person who beats the drum in the organization. They are the ones who, you know, harmoniously integrate the leadership team to work together to achieve the common goal of the organization. And then about 50% of the time, organizations that I work with look just like this. They have an integrator who's running the day-to-day, but the other 50% of the time, there's another function that's added to the accountability chart, which we call the visionary. And the visionary is really the person who is top-end thinking. They're typically at 30,000 feet looking down at the organization. They are the ones with the big ideas. They come to every meeting with 20 ideas. Maybe 2 of them are good. The others are pie in the sky. They are the creative problem solvers. They are the ones who have the big relationships for the organization. Some of the negatives, though, is that they hate getting in the trenches and they don't like having difficult conversations. And so if there's a visionary in your organization, you have to call that out. Then what we do is we write down the 5 major roles of each of these functions. And this is where we actually take this from a traditional organization chart to an accountability chart. Because once you include the 5 major functions within each of these 5 major roles within each of these functions, then everybody in the organization knows who to go to for what, and everybody knows, you know, where their work begins and where it ends. Doesn't mean that they don't work together as a team, but they just work better together when everybody knows what their responsibilities are. The tool we use is something we call GWC. G stands for get it. So the way you evaluate whether or not you have a right seat person is, do they intuitively, innately understand what the role of their position is? The second is, do they want it? Do they spring out of bed in the morning excited to get to work and take on the task? And then the third one is, do they have the capacity to do it? And by that I mean, do they have the training and skills to be able to perform the job? And you have to have all 3. So you have to have somebody that innately understands the role, that they're excited about the role, and that they have the skills and training to do the job. And if you say no to any of those 3 components, you do not have a right seat person. One caveat, you promote somebody into a higher position, they may not have the skills or training. It is up to you to train them so that they do get it. Any questions on that?
No.
So, right people, right seats, you have to have both. And just as Annie was saying earlier, if you have somebody that has the right seat, they get the job, you know, but they don't share in your organization's core values, they're chopping away at your core values in small ways you don't even see. So we add that to the people analyzer, and then it has to be a Y across the board. The data component is simply creating a simple scorecard for your organization, establishing 5 to 15 high-level metrics that'll give you an absolute pulse on your business. Now, these are forward indicators. If you're looking at a financial statement, that's a rear view indicator. That won't give you an ability to change for the future. And what we ask you to do is you assign a metric to an individual. At no time should 2 people be responsible for one metric, because they tend to point fingers at each other if they're not met, okay? You should have a weekly goal for your metric, and your scorecard should be coupled with 13 weeks of history, 13 weeks at a glance, so that you can see trends and patterns evolve, giving you time to adjust as necessary. So anybody have any ideas as to what would be an appropriate measurable for a scorecard as a forward-looking indicator? Anybody want to take a shot? I will tell you, this is one of the hardest things that we that our clients work on. It usually takes them between 1 and 3 months to really get comfortable with the scorecard. So the fact that maybe you don't have an answer for me doesn't surprise me. It might be the number of leads. You know, Andrew in his digital marketing firm will set up a website for you, and maybe you'll measure the number of leads coming in over that website. That's a forward indicator. And then how many of those leads you may convert to appointments, and how many of those appointments you convert to sales. Those are all forward indicators that'll give you a pulse on your business. And what I tell people to do is just envision themselves on a deserted beach, and the cabana boy or girl comes over with one page that was sent over with 5 to 15 measurables. What are those measurables that you're going to want to see on that deserted beach to know whether or not you got to get back on a plane and get home right away, or that, you know what, you can enjoy yourself for another couple of days. So that's your scorecard. These are some examples of some measurables that clients choose. And so you could adopt any of those if you'd like. And then measurables, again, everybody in the organization should be assigned to a measurable, and a measurable is just a number that I, as one of the X number of employees in your company, am accountable for keeping on track every week to help you stay on goal monthly, quarterly, and annually. And so you could see the tree effect. You create that goal, that 10-year target, that 1-year goal, whatever that metric is, and then you continue to trickle it down so that everybody in the organization has a measurable that's associated with that goal, so that everybody is working to help you achieve that. Issues. So we move to the next key component, then the issues list. And we talked about the issues list on the Vision Traction Organizer. But what's really important here is that what you want to do is you want to really push down into the organization that everybody should feel the right to raise their hand and call out an issue whenever they see one occurring in your business. And it's important because many organizations have stifled the voices of people throughout the organization. And as an example, I have a trucking company where somebody at the docks didn't feel that their voice would be heard, saw that there was something wrong with one of the rigs, didn't say anything, and unfortunately there was an accident. Thank goodness nobody died or got injured, but it cost the company $40,000 to $50,000 to repair that rig. And had that person felt that their voice would be heard and raise that issue, hopefully that would have been avoided. And so we also have created what we call an issue solving track for our organizations, because we find that most organizations, you know, they'll get themselves in a room to tackle an issue and they don't know how to solve it. And so what we've done is we've created an issue solving track to help organizations do just that. And we call it IDS. And I stands for identify. Very important to really get to the root cause of an issue. Quite often when somebody raises an issue, it really is just it's a symptom of an issue. And if you solve the symptom, well, great, you may have solved that one little problem, but if you don't get to the root of it, that symptom is going to continue to rise. The second is to discuss. And discuss is where, this is where you ask questions, you ask clarifying questions to really get down to the root of that issue, understand it intuitively. And again, this is where the third is solve. And solving is just coming up with an action plan and assigning an individual to a task that'll solve that issue and make it go away for the long-term greater good of the organization. I'll just move quickly through here because I know we are limited on time. The next component is the process component. And one of the tools is to document. And what we talk about there is that every organization has 6 to 8 major functions in their organization: people function, marketing, sales, operations, accounting, customer retention component. And what we're recommending that you do here is that you document the 20% of the steps in a process that'll get you 80% of the way there. To spend time documenting the minutia, 100% of all of the steps completing a certain process will only create a 700-page SOP manual for you that nobody will ever look at or use. And what we're recommending there is looking at it from an entrepreneurial perspective. documenting just those 20% of the steps that'll get you 80% of the way there, and then allowing people to be able to fill in the blanks, to be creative, to get the other 80% of the steps to get you all the way there, okay? Then what we're looking at is something that we call followed by all. And followed by all is just a mechanism for which you train your people. Anybody that touches any of those processes, you've properly trained, and that they know the best and right way to do it, because it'll create consistency and scalability in your business, make it easier to manage, more profitable, and it'll make your business more valuable as well, because when you have your steps documented, you're able at that point to show it to a buyer to say, look, if you follow these steps here, you will be as successful as me. Any questions on the process component? Traction, most important. So the first tool is something we call rocks. And then the second one is a meeting pulse. And I'm going to start off with rocks. So what's important about rocks is that, again, what you want to do in your organization is you want to create a 90-day world for your organization, where every 90 days you are deciding what are the most important things you want to accomplish at the company level, and what as individual leaders within your organization want to achieve as well. And you create that 90-day world where in the beginning you establish what those rocks are. And rocks are from the Stephen Covey example of a university lecture where he set up a jar, a pile of rocks, pebbles, sand, and water, and he asked the students to fill that jar. And they took the water, they filled it in first, they put the sand in second, pebbles in third, the rocks in last, and lo and behold, there wasn't enough room for all of the rocks. And so the moral of that is that if you put the rocks in first, you then drop the pebbles in, they'll fall between the crevices of the rocks, and then you drop sand in, it'll fill up the remaining space, and when you pour the water in last, it's nice and level, so that everything fits in at that point in time. And so again, what you want to do is you want to be able to get the most important stuff done in the organization in the beginning. There's a book out there called Eat the Frog First. I don't know if any of you have read that book, but what it talks about is that, you know, in the morning when you come into work, there's a little bullfrog on the edge of your desk. And what that signifies is the most difficult thing you got to get done that day. If you decide to ignore that bullfrog in the morning, by the end of the day, it grows to an enormous size and it is slimy and greasy. And the last thing that you want to do at that point is tackle it. And we say that if you have a rock, let that be your priority, because the more rocks you can get taken care of, the higher your business will go. The last in the traction component is something we call the level 10 meeting. And I'm going to briefly bring you through it. You start your meetings. What we found is that organizations don't know how to run meetings. And what we recommend is that you have a weekly meeting with your leadership team. Maybe it's a leadership team of 1, maybe it's a leadership team of 10, whatever it might be. But you should have the meeting on the same day and same hour of the day each week. So you start off with good news. It just changes your mind thinking from working in the business to working on the business. You go through your scorecard. Everybody reads off what their metric is, and they either say that they're on schedule or off schedule, no discussion about it. They're just giving you a rating. And then that drops down, if they're off target, to an issues list we'll talk about in a moment. Same thing for rock review. You go around the room, everybody reads off their rocks. They tell you that they're either on target or off target. They let you know. A quick 5-minute people headline, the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, it doesn't always have to be bad. It could be something good. Somebody may, you know, be pregnant and you want to, you know, discuss as an issue, maybe throwing a shower for that person. We inject into all of the meetings a to-do list, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then you spend the vast majority of the 90-minute meeting IDSing your issues, solving the most important things you have to solve that week. And again, you may recall that once you solve an issue, the way you solve an issue is to choose a task, to select an outcome, a task that needs to be completed, and you assign that task to somebody in the organization. If that task can get done in a week or so, you add that to the to-do list, because what we want to do is we want to inject accountability into your organization so that every week when you're sitting down for meetings, people know what they needed to accomplish that week. And that's where you're going to find out whether or not your people are holding themselves accountable and whether or not you're holding them accountable. You conclude the meeting, and with conclude, you basically rating your meeting so that everybody knows that the quality of your meeting is improving over time. And that's traction. So those are the 6 key components of the business. If an organization wanted to go ahead and implement EOS on their own, they can certainly do so by downloading the tools. You can send me an email if you'd like me to send you the tools. I'm happy to do that. And before the call is over here, I'll put in my email in the system over here in the chat box. But for organizations that want to work with an implementer, because we find that those that do tend to achieve their goals a whole lot sooner, the way that we work with them is I do a 90-minute meeting. I get the leadership team aside to do a focus day. We talk about hitting the ceiling, concepts around breaking through that ceiling. We build out the accountability chart, rocks, the meeting pulse, and the scorecard. And then we spend 2 days together answering those 8 questions on that VTO, helping you design your strategic plan. And then going forward, what I do is I work with my clients on a quarterly basis where I am their accountability partner. Every quarter, I work with my leadership teams to look and see what it is that they promised to do the quarter before. Did they accomplish it? If not, what held them back? What do they need to do to move forward, and so forth. And so that's how folks work with me. These are the foundational tools. We've already provided you the VTO, the accountability chart, rocks, the level 10 agenda, and the scorecard. I would like to give a book away with, I have a copy of a book called Traction, which you see over there. And that's for people who have a company already established. And Travis will provide me with the name of somebody to mail that book to. And so we may need your mailing address for that. But I also have another book called The Entrepreneurial Leap. And let me just escape out of share here. And so if you could see this on the screen, this is a book called Entrepreneurial Leap. And this is really meant for somebody like Kelly, let's say, or somebody that's starting up a new business and they want to really learn what are the attributes about being an entrepreneurial leader. So Travis will provide for me after this call with 2 names, one person who I'll send the copy of the book Leap to, and then the other person a copy of the book Traction. And I think we're doing okay on time over here. I'm really proud of myself for keeping it exactly to 1 hour over here, to 1 o'clock, and I open it up for questions.
I'd just like to say good job. Very, very good presentation. Thank you.
My pleasure. And if anybody would like me to conduct a workshop for their organization, I am more than happy to do so. And when I do that for organizations, some of them choose to have everybody in the organization, 20 or 30 people on the call. And what I do is I work them through that VTO and think about the business from their own department level or from their own position level, or maybe from a personal level, something from, just, what they want to accomplish in life. Questions?
I've got a question for you, Paul. Oftentimes, people are so grounded in their belief systems, they're reluctant to actually step out of their comfort zones and start working through the change. What are some of the things that you have found to be successful at helping those types of individuals that are dragging their heels?
And are you referring to somebody, let's say the business owner, the leadership team, or elsewhere in the organization?
Oh, it could be either, right? So some business owners would love to have this snap of the finger solution and have everybody go ahead and apply, but they themselves don't want to make the change. Or there's individuals, a key position, a VP, that just fundamentally doesn't buy in, and then that becomes the albatross. You can pick whichever you'd like to address.
Sure. What I would tell you is this, that if a business owner themselves is unwilling to make change, it doesn't matter what system they attempt to put into place because they won't be successful at it. It has to come from within that they want to make change. But what we often see is that there are people within an organization who have a very difficult time with making change. And so in a EOS run organization, it's a very transparent organization. Everything is out there for everybody to see. you share with them what the 10-year target is for the organization, and you share with them all of the other things on the VTO. And so everybody knows the direction you're heading in an organization, especially at the leadership team level. And when, you know, people have to then select what their rocks are, what they want to accomplish over the next 90 days, it is up to the integrator in the organization to hold everybody accountable for really selecting rocks that'll move the organization forward. And if somebody throws a softball at you because they don't want to change, well, you have to call that out. And then what you have to do is that if they don't really pick up the message, because, you know, you're having conversations with them about your core values, and you're having conversations with them about GW seeing their seat, getting it, wanting it, and having the capacity to do that, that if over time they just don't change, well, then you either have a wrong person or you have a person in the wrong seat. And you need to make that change yourself. But it's a great question, Tony. And quite often, issues that an organization deals with, 80% of the time, it's people related.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Great
My
answer.
pleasure. Thank you for asking. Anyone else with a question? Okay.